What's up, YouTube audience? So maybe there's some wind around me. I'll try to keep it brief, but I'm in Las Vegas. So if you're in Las Vegas, teaching this weekend at True Yoga, lots of great events, 5-event immersion weekend. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is why you can't ask questions. This is something that I see over and over, and it was first brought to my attention by Vince Kelvin, where he would talk about, he split it apart into taking steps or telling stories. That unless you're taking steps, you're always caught in telling a story. And it could be telling a story to yourself while you're not taking steps. So what I want you to notice in yourself, especially, because I notice it so much in myself, but especially in other people, if you're ever maybe teaching somebody something, or which doesn't need to be in like a yoga context or like a big classroom or a major endeavor kind of context, just when you're teaching them anything, like how to use the remote control or something. Notice that when they have a question or they reply in some way that seems like they're about to ask something, and they just tell you a story. And they're like, I have a question. Well, when I was 13, I was playing with my remote control and the batteries fell out and I couldn't figure out how to make it work. Okay, what's your question? Well, when I guess my question is, when the remote control isn't working, like, well, I guess I just got and they just go into a story. It's like, bro, ask the question. What's the question? Like, I can decipher the question. You can decipher the question. But this happens especially early on when I was giving like private lessons, a little bit in public workshops. It's funny because in the social dynamics of a larger group, it seems to sort itself out more because everybody else can hear the absurdity of the person talking. But in a one-on-one, it's not as easy. And I was frustrating myself a lot early on, deciphering somebody's story and just trying to distill it into the question, like, oh, I think I can assume what they're trying to ask, and then answering the question that I think they're trying to ask, but you're not answering the question. And so the story keeps coming, then they give you another story, and for an hour or 2 hours, you're just addressing the questions that they haven't actually asked. And although it's a little bit uncomfortable, and sorry about the wind, guys, I guess I could have gotten my shotgun mic. You know, that's just the way it is right now. Instead, go through the little bit of discomfort of saying, so what's your question? So is your question, and I don't like leading, like leading the witness. I don't want to say like, is your question this? Occasionally I do, but more or less I would just say, what's your question? It sounds like you're talking about this, that, or the other. Did you have a question? And get them to ask the question, because then you can address the question. The question is a bunch of words with a question tone inflection that's generated from their mind using the vernacular and the syntax and the vocabulary that their mind uses to process data, sense data. And when you can address that question, you're addressing their mind. But if they haven't asked the question, then it's a good chance that whatever answer you give them is not in reply to the question that they wanted to ask. Just because maybe they were incapable of asking a question. I know a lot of times that I raise my hand, I know I have a question, but I just haven't articulated it in my mind yet, and I got to talk through a story before I get to the question. I frustrate myself when I do that. But even then, I always end on a question, like an actual, so what do you think about blah, blah, blah? Like, and I inflect my voice and I make it a question. And if I can't think of the question, then I say, I guess I don't have a question. I have some unprocessed things that, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Sorry for thinking I had a question. And a lot of times then that'll help because then they can address that. Just be aware of when are you telling stories versus when are you actually asking a question. And pay attention to when other people are around you too. A lot of your frustrations in communication are probably because you're answering something that isn't being asked, because you're just assuming it's being asked, because you don't take the time to ask them, what are they really asking? So I hope you found this helpful. And I teach a lot more on this subject in the Silent Flute, especially in terms of using people's words to access their mind code and vice versa to really facilitate connection and communication, meaning an efficient progress towards a desired outcome. So I hope to see you there. Check the link below if you're interested in the Silent Flute, and I'll catch you in the next one. Namaste.